Sure it's on. Start by just brushing your eyebrow, alright? And then use your Hydromastics. You've all been skin tested for it. And just start putting your Hydromastics on. Now what you're doing is you're flattening it a bit first with your Hydromastics. And then you're going to use some wax. So we've got some Sin Wax by Kryolan here. So we're going to just get some with our spatulas. Have you all got spatulas? If you haven't, don't worry, you can use a wooden spatula. And you only need the size, I suppose, of a large pea really. And then your Hydromastics will act as an adhesive just to secure your wax down. And to make this activate it, what you do is you just tap it gently and then it'll start to go really tacky. And as it goes tacky, that's the adhesive going off, and that's when you can then start to put your wax on. So it's now starting to get a bit tacky. It's starting to lift with my finger. So my wax that I've got, I'm just going to sort of roll it out and then push it onto my eyebrow. So like, I suppose like a little bit like a worm. And then just pop your head up so you can see. That's it. So with my spatula, I'm just going to push it down here at the front, and don't be frightened to put pressure on, and then just start to spread the wax over the eyebrow. Okay? Take the excess off because you don't want it to be really bulky. You only want it to be fine. And then use your spatula, and again, don't be frightened to press down, and just gently start to push it down but smooth it out. So what you're doing is you're covering the eyebrow hairs, right, like that. I actually prefer using the wooden spatulas, if I'm honest. You alright there, Hannah?
Yeah.
So just taking the excess off it, because the whole point is to make you look like you've got no eyebrows, obviously. So you don't want it to look like it's got a load of wax on it. It has to blend in really natural. So you just doing that. Okay. And then what I tend to do is I look at it full on there, I look at it full on in the mirror, and then I look at it on a side profile, so I can see that I've got no hairs there, so it's all smooth, and I'm looking at it from the side of it, so I can see there's no hair stuck up or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Hydromastics again, and I'm just literally going to paint over it, and this will work like a sealer now. So the Hydromastic. So if you can imagine, like, you know when you do like a top coat on your nail varnish, and it kind of just seals your nail varnish, this is what your Hydromastics will work like on top of your wax. Because if you start putting your camouflage makeup on top of your wax, you can sometimes lift it off. You'll still probably lift it off if you're too heavy-handed. You'll have to be gentle with it, but at least you can seal it a little bit with your Hydromastics. How do you remove Hydromastics? We talked about it last week. How do we remove it? Jess, how do we remove Hydromastics?
Isn't it? Oh wait.
Have you got your notes?
Yeah.
Anybody? Can anybody help? Yeah, what, sorry?
Is it soapy?
Yeah, yeah. The clue is in the Hydro. With it being Hydro, it's water based. Yeah. Soapy water. Yeah, that'll work. So that's what will take off this Hydromastics. It'll take a few minutes for it to dry, so just let it dry. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting a base on. So we're going to go for that really quite traditional, theatrical, like 18th century look, and we're going to use a pan stick. These are good, these pan sticks. So what you can do is you can share them out, decant some onto, you know, onto a spatula and take it away and use it. I'm going to just use this like big foundation brush, and you probably find when you're putting this on, you'll have to stipple it. So you just stipple in, and that'll just cover it better. So get the excess on first and then just go around. And then obviously your wig's going to go on, so where your hair colour is, you're going to cover that with a wig, and that's going to be a white wig. Like I say, I'm only going to do half of the face, and you're just going to then do your own look on each other, but you're going to do a full look. I would look at what you're wearing. We've got a rail full of costumes that you can use, so get something from there and put that on. This is an oil-based paint, a grease-based paint, so quite heavy, very full coverage. So, you know, if you're going to have a full coverage, this is what makeup really will give you full coverage. And don't forget, any bit of skin that's showing, you'll have to cover that, otherwise it'll look really, really odd, you know. So blend it down your neck and things like that. And then for all your little areas, you can use a smaller brush for all your nooks and crannies, around your nose, around your eyes, that kind of thing. Just close your eye for me, Hannah. That's it. So it's still a little bit tacky, so I'll just do her lower lid of her eyelid. So I'm just going to go over your eyelid just there. And just check with your model, just make sure she don't have contact lenses. Do you have contact lenses, Hannah?
No.
No, I didn't think you did. But when you're working with people, they're the things that you need to ask. So when you are working with them, just ask them. Because that's then, if they are wearing contact lenses, you just have to be careful what pressure you put on their eyelids. And then just keep like that for a minute. And then keep looking at your work in the mirror and checking if it's even, if it's an even coverage. And if it isn't, then where do you need to build up your colour? So like I said, keep dragging it down. Now you can do it with a damp sponge or a damp natural sponge. You can do this. Is that somebody's phone? So these are used generally for things like characters, creating characters, TV sticks in industry. So they are good, you know, they give a really good full coverage. More than the white face and body with MAC, you would get a quite streaky look, whereas because we're wanting that more theatrical light look today, you need that. So stippling is just literally, you know, rolling your brush and building your colour. So if you feel it's a bit streaky and it's got brush marks on it, then just stipple it. And just keep looking in your mirror and checking. So this effect is your stippling effect. And that's just building an even coverage of colour. Alright? So you can do that with a foam sponge as well. It's probably better with a foam sponge. And then obviously this colour would want to be taken down a neck. You don't have to be as white going down a neck, but you need to make sure you look like you're blending it and you've not got a line, and then she's got a nice suntan neck. It just won't look right. And then if you've got a dress with short sleeves, what do you do with your arms and everything and your hands? Would you have to paint them, girls? Yeah, you would. But you could use something like your face and body then. You wouldn't need it as heavy on your arms and everything. Just keep all your brushes to one side so you're keeping yourself in a nice neat area that you're working in, and you're not getting in a mess and you don't know which brushes you've used and what you haven't used, that kind of thing. Might just touch your ear, just fade it into her ear here so that it looks like it's blending. And then just see if that's dry. It's still tiny bit tacky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting powder on. So I tend to hold my powder puff in my little finger. That way if I'm touching the skin, I'm not touching it with my skin, and I'm just sort of protecting the makeup and not rubbing it off. I'm going to use my powder puff, and I'm using the no colour powder. These are brilliant. So this is what they call no colour powder, which is excellent. So that means you can use it on white skin and black skin. You're not going to get no difference. There's no titanium dioxide in them, so that it makes it look ghosting or anything like that, a flashback. So what it'll do is it'll set this makeup for me, and it'll just set it, and then you know it's not going to move and go anywhere. So I've got some in a bowl, obviously, and I'm going to just start to put it onto my TV sticks. So just a rolling effect all over, just to set your makeup. And again, in the 18th century, they did really powder the faces and powder the wigs, so it was really fashionable to do that. But I'm just going to let the powder sit on the skin, so it's a bit excessive, so it's there sat on top of the skin, but it's kind of like that terminology that they use about baking, where it's setting it, and by setting it, it's going to maintain the life of it and keep it longer, and it's not going to move very much. So just check that. Right, still kind of a little bit. No, it should be alright now. So it's had hydromastics on my brow. I've then put wax on my brow. I've then set over the top of it as a sealer with hydromastics. Now I'm going to just colour over the brow. So I have to use camouflage makeup. And do you remember we did that with the soap? But what we did was we hid the hairs first, and we put this one, which is your D32, which is that pinky tone, on first. So just where your hairs are, just paint your D32, which is your pink. Yeah? You don't want it all over, but just on there. So you just colour in that brow. And just gentle, because if you do anything too hard, you'll start to lift your wax. So you have got to be careful with this. Right, now what I need to do is set it. So I get my powder, which is the Kryolan one, not your no colour powder, so it can get a bit confusing now. And you're going to just push this powder gently onto your camouflage makeup. Right, just gently pressing. Now this is going to set the camouflage. Now the camouflage powder works in hand with the camouflage cream makeup. This will help you set it to then colour it over white. If you don't set it, you'll end up with a pinky brow. Now ideally you need 5 minutes to do this, because it has to set it. It's like baking it, like we talked about. I don't have 5 minutes in my demo, but as long as you leave it around 5 minutes, you'll be fine. Okay? So 5 minutes needed to let that set. then when you're 5 minutes,